You can now support the show through Patreon or by purchasing the new Will I Vike It and Saxon Forager merch. There's some really great designs, some of which were done by the fantastic Saxon storyteller. If you can't spare the money but still want to show your support, click the subscribe button. It really does help. Enjoy the episode, and I hope you Vike it. Hello and welcome back to the Will I Vike It podcast. Today I've come back to the Ancient Technology Centre in Cranbourne, and my guest is Caroline Nicolay, otherwise known as Pario Gallico.
Yeah, that's it.
Did I say that right?
Yeah, you did actually. That's a really good one.
Actually, we could jump straight in because I was wondering on the way here what Pario Gallico means. I think you've probably told me before, but... Well,
so Pario Gallico is the name I chose for my company because at the start I wanted to do Iron Age food, catering, and that was it.
Okay.
And Pario means cauldron, Gallico means Gallic.
Right,
In Iron Age language from France, where I come from. So basically the Gallic cauldron. Yeah. And no, I didn't do that. I still do, Iron Age food, definitely, research, a bit of catering, but it's mainly demonstrations, courses, living history more than a proper just catering for special events.
Okay. So sort of going the wrong way around it now, but I was going to say, so how did you get started? But that's kind of wrapped up in that same
kind of, but I could even push it further because I had that question before.
Yeah.
Well, Craig, actually, so when I started, what year was that? I started in, 2016, I think, properly the company, after visiting the Ancient Technology Centre. Wow. It all started here. I came for an interview and I didn't get it.
Oh, no.
I met somebody called Pascal that I cannot thank enough because she contacted me a bit later on and asked me if I could do an Iron Age cooking demonstration for one of the open events. I started there and I never stopped. So before that, it's just being at university and learning about archaeology and the Iron Age, which came really late, unfortunately, in my life. We had different professors or teachers, and basically somebody saying, in the Iron Age, peak of agriculture, the plough begins to exist, you have huge amounts of evidence for excellent crop growing, but also cattle management and so on and so forth, so husbandry and fields. And somebody else was basically talking about the everyday life and saying that was really sad at the time. They were only eating bland gruel and porridge every single day. I think, excellent agriculture, lots of things available, and you're telling me you're going to eat porridge, bland porridge, that was so important, bland food, every single day of your life? Nah. So then I started just looking at it, researching, and I'm not really a cook. I worked as a cook as well in cafes and restaurants. Weirdly, like that, it just happened. And I'm more interested in the cooking techniques, utensils, and how you manage the heat from a fire to actually cook something, rather than looking for very interesting flavors to combine and so on. Yeah. So I'm a very good taster, but I'm not always the most creative cook, I would say. Yeah.
I mean, I don't have any formal training either. I didn't go to university or anything. I'm a painter and decorator.
Yeah, but that's good. And
it's a hobby that's, like yourself, you start doing one thing and it sort of just snowballs and you end up doing other things. I'm partly, what I do is responsible, well, you're partly responsible for what I do. Because if you remember, we met at Berrycroft Hub at one of your talks you were giving on the Iron Age.
Some time ago.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many, 4 years, 3 years?
At least 4. Yeah.
Definitely pre the COVID years.
Pre-COVID, yeah.
So that's at least 3. So I think, and I've been in my house now for 3 years. This is probably really boring for people.
Sorry.
So we met, and actually then you started because, as far as I understand, you don't really like the Saxon and Viking period. Because you do Iron Age, and then you jump full, you do Roman. a bit?
Well, I do a bit of Roman. I started on Roman food because there's texts.
Yeah.
So when
It's
you look
easier
at
to make.
historical food, you start by, well, I started by Roman, looking at the recipes, etc. And then I chose a time period I preferred. But I don't do early medieval. Well, I did a bit of research on Saxon food, not quite Viking and so on, because again, there's books. But I really prefer the Iron Age because I like the fact that there's no written records. You need to dig into the archaeology.
Yeah.
So I don't dislike them, but I don't do it. I don't research it.
But from my perspective, it was good because when people like the Ancient Technology Centre, even Berrycroft Hub, were asking for extra tutors to do courses, you put my name forward.
Yeah.
So
Because you were doing Saxon and all the things I didn't want to do. So
yeah, so it worked for everyone. But yeah, so you're partly responsible for my snowballing hobby.
I won't even apologise.
It's excellent.
It's amazing. What you're doing is absolutely fantastic. And I find personally that you have such a bit more of a better combined approach to historical food because you have written cookbooks and you do foraging as well, but you have written cookbooks, I think, before you even got into the historical food kind of question.
I wrote a couple of basic cookbooks for Asatru UK.
Yeah.
Just some basic guides, and they had some of the stuff that I've reused later on for the Halfling books. So we've ended up with sort of those recipes, and that then eventually went to the more historical stuff, more research, and I think the first book even was written before we'd even done a single show.
Yeah, you did, yeah.
It was just looking into the food of the period, and if I go to an event, what am I going to do at an event? Well, I want to cook, so I need to know about that before I do it. And so I did the research, it became a book. So yeah, I've kind of reversed.
Yeah, that's reverse engineering it.
Yeah.
But that's perfect. That's what I like. To me, you came from a cooking passion. I want to say you seem to really, really like cooking, and you work with flavors, and you do it simply but really, really well. And then you got onto the archaeology and the research side of things, and you can combine both.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't feel like I have that. I don't want to say appreciation, but that connection to cooking well. I'm already amazed when I make a super simple soup. So I just stop there. So I quite like that.
I mean, for me, personally, there's more of a challenge to it. So it's the same as trying to cook good vegan food. You can have good vegan food, and I think it's a bit more than buying vegan sausages.
Yes.
You can actually make good curries and things, and I like working within that limitation. So then again, when it came to the historic side, I was taking the same approach, and I was like, well, hang on, I can't use this and I can't use that, but I can use that. And so it was that, combining things that way, and even trying to reverse engineer modern food to be historic.
That's it. Because it's exactly what you just said. I feel it's let's call it the limitation, but it's that you work within within a box.
Yeah.
You have these ingredients available, or at least that's how I see it. You have these ingredients, these utensils, and these heat or cooking methods. And you have the seasonality of foods. If you manage, so for me in the Iron Age, no text, very little, entire meals preserved in archaeology. So you get all of your information. I have these kind of meat, vegetables. You could forage these plants, native to Britain, the right season for that dish, and probably available in wetland or etc. environments. Can I actually cook them in the utensils I've got? So you're going to mention one of the utensils I do not have, which I love.
And I've cooked with this morning.
Oh no!
To make something.
I'm so jealous. It's the frying pan.
Yeah, I knew it.
Every time anybody asks me, so what have the Romans really done for us? The frying pan, genuinely the frying pan. And gender inequality, but we'll talk about that later.
Another subject.
There's these folding frying pans that come in the backpacks of legionaries that we do not have beforehand. And I come from the east of France. I don't have a tradition of, crepes and pancakes making but I really love them.
Yeah.
if you don't have a frying pan, if you have a really liquid batter, unless you have a sort of cooking stone with a dip in the middle,
Yeah.
you can't make pancakes.
Yeah.
You can't make crepes. So there are dishes that you have the ingredients, you have the heat source, all of that, but you don't have the right utensil. And I think you have brought me a jar of something that I do.
Feel free. I
have.
mean, if you want to open it and have a smell and see what you think. So this is last spring's wild garlic,
Oh,
sprinkled with salt and fermented. There is more detailed. I've got a video on my YouTube channel,
yeah.
and it gets stronger the longer you leave
Does it?
So that's probably max strength now, because that's, I mean,
Super strong.
April last year, so
Oh.
best part of a year.
It's still really green and beautiful. I mean, you guys will have seen the recipe, but it smells so fresh. It's not an overpowering, oh, garlic, here you go, get that big slap in the face when you usually cut a clove or something.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
properly, you just cut wild garlic with a sort of, well, the fermentation, so the kind of vinegary kind of smell flavor. That just made me salivate a lot. I just sharing, but but that's,
So yeah, I mean, you're welcome to keep that. I made a lot of it last year, and I've still got a cupboard full. I've got
Thank you.
garlic, salt, and to be honest, I get in trouble at home for overusing wild
Really?
garlic.
That is amazing.
Top of a pizza.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I have it with, well, cheese with anything, bread, just that.
Oh,
But-
soft cheese.
Ooh, actually,
Mix it in.
yeah.
Yeah.
You have made, I remember that last time I think we met, or maybe the time before, a leg of lamb or a roast, something big piece of meat, and in the cuts,
Yeah.
you had wild garlic.
Did I put wild garlic in?
I think you did.
I've done it so many times I forget. So sometimes I put cloves of garlic. It was probably lamb or venison. If it was here,
Probably venison.
we had the
then.
whole deer,
Yeah.
and I butchered the deer. So it would
Oh,
be a
really?
venison haunch, I guess, stuffed with wild garlic then. But sometimes I use garlic cloves. Rosemary is another good one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But see, you can use garlic cloves, and that's what we were chatting about a bit earlier. Wild garlic for Iron Age cooking, yeah, definitely native to Britain, you have wild garlic. But it's the only allium I get. I don't have leeks, onions, or garlic, like bulbs of garlic yet. Whereas in Saxon cooking, you have all the alliums that arrive from the Mediterranean with the Romans or Roman influence.
Blame the Romans again.
Okay.
What did
frying
they do for
pans
us?
and leeks and onions and so on.
Yeah.
They seem to be, or they might be trade, because the south of France was already Greek, then Roman control, and it's really hard to trace. But so far, before Roman conquest of Britain and then the Saxons, nah. So your lectins and your leek gardens and all, I'm really jealous. All the things I love, I actually don't have.
So now I'm just thinking about what to feed you first. So
I'm scared.
no pre-warning here. Caroline
No.
doesn't know what's coming. So I guess the loaf is on the table.
Okay, yeah.
So we could start with that. I'm sure you've noticed it looks a bit Frankensteinian with the cut
Yes.
around the edge. So it's obviously not quite what you think it is. So this is what would be called Oster halafas. I don't speak much
It's
Old English.
Very lovely.
Oster oyster,
Uh-huh.
a loaf,
Oyster bread.
oyster bread.
No way.
Yes. So it's got in there parsley, eggs, some of the minced up bread, wine, water, beef, suet, and oysters.
And oysters as well.
Not many oysters in there. I could only get half a dozen
Yeah.
this morning, but that was all they had. But normally I'd put about a dozen in. And that's the
Wow.
thing I was telling you before that I don't like.
Oysters.
Yes.
No way. Even cooked?
I'm not a fan. I'm not
Ah.
a fan. I think it's a texture thing. And
Yeah.
I've done them on the embers of the fire.
Amazing.
You just put the whole
yes.
shell in, maybe a bit of garlic.
Oh, wild garlic oysters.
Yeah.
Wild garlic oysters.
Yeah.
Hang on. Oh,
Where's the nearest shop? Let's go.
do you know? So, do you cook the mix in the bread? No, that was a stupid question. You cook the mix and then you put it in the bread.
Yes, so it's mixed into a frying pan first. The bread I actually cooked yesterday, cut the top off, hollowed out with a spoon, and then I pour the filling in,
Oh, yucky.
and then put it in the oven and bake it. So it would be quite high status because it's a loaf of bread,
Yeah.
and some of the ingredients are. It's got salt and pepper in there as well, so pepper's
sounds
quite a high
amazing, to
status
be
thing
fair.
to have.
So I might leave you to explain how you serve it, because I thought, oh, I just slice the loaf and that will be okay. But now that doesn't sound like a very good idea at all.
Well, how do you serve it? It's a good question.
Open scoop. It reminds me of these Eastern Europeans or even Polish dishes where, it's lovely. It's served in bread loaves, or Romanian dishes. That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've had like pumpkin soup in a pumpkin before. Not historic, obviously, but I don't know. I mean, if you want to see the filling there,
Can you see, guys?
and look,
That's
that's how warm I kept that. That was cooked fresh. I drove an hour to get here. We've
can't believe
stood
it.
around talking for half an hour, and it's still hot.
that's actually something really interesting to know. It smells amazing.
Oh, yeah, it smells like wine.
Well, I won't blame you for that. So should I taste it?
Should you? Are you?
Would
you
you like
game?
me to taste it? Oh,
Are
yeah.
you game?
Definitely.
So, good question is, how do you serve it? So last time I did it, it's been a couple of years actually, and I cut a slice. And so you end up with the bread and the filling. That looks a little bit on the wet side for slicing at the moment.
I would almost,
I think what we do is scoop a
it.
bit into our bowls,
yeah.
slice a bit of bread off to go with it.
Oh, yeah. I'm up for that,
yeah.
no problem.
So yeah, it's a high status thing really with all this.
I don't remember the last time I ate oysters or anything in bread.
I'm going to use this.
That's beautiful.
So this is the debut for this knife actually. So Caroline brought it over for me.
That's it.
I just got it from Tom, Big Bainin, the blacksmith. Shall we try and slice it? Shall we see what happens?
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, the knife's sharp.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Tom.
I suddenly had a little palpitation going, oh, did you
Yeah.
sharpen it? Yeah.
And the sheep are coming to join us.
Of course, because you can't
Oh, do you
eat
know
without.
what? That might just about. You don't have to eat that whole slice. You can, but you don't.
I mean,
Now the issue is actually slicing it again, isn't it? Because
yeah.
you're going to lose the filling.
Well, I connect with weird and wonderful things, but we also do, apart from Iron Age,
Yeah.
Tudor, late Tudor, so
Yeah.
say 1580s kind of
Whoa.
living history, and especially meals, table manners. You might have talked to Tom about
I
that.
did
actually.
talk to
You
Tom about
did.
table manners. He showed us all about carving properly
That's the thing, and I would
with
definitely
the
ask
fork
him.
on top, not in. We covered all of that stuff, yeah?
That's how.
Advanced tasting.
So what do you think? Oh, and you're helping yourself, but you don't particularly like oysters.
So I've had this before, and in this dish, they are fine.
Okay. It's the wine, I'm sure.
Wine makes everything good.
I won't disagree.
But yeah, as a plain oyster, I think it's more about the texture. I can't even rip a piece of bread off. So apologies to those that don't like to hear me eat, because apparently that's a thing.
Oh. Okay.
The improved microphone means everyone can hear you. I found initially I was more concerned about talking on camera,
Yeah.
and now I've got more used to that. I actually
It's
am
the
more conscious
eating.
about eating on camera with the noises and just
Oh no. Yeah, me too now. Now that you mention it. So I could just talk over it, or I'll hum, you eat. Then you sing, I eat. It's really not, it's not the taste I would expect at all. It's very dainty. It's very light in taste. I was kind of expecting a sort of beef stew, like steak and ale pie, kind of really.
it's kind of
dark.
surf and turf, isn't it? Oysters and beef.
Oh yeah.
It's like an Anglo-Saxon surf and turf.
You should market it like that.
I was gonna get you to cut it originally, and I was thinking we can call this surprise bread.
Oh yeah.
And you'd say, "What's a surprise? No bread."
It's actually
Bad joke.
If you had asked me, I think, stupidly now that I know what's in it, I would have gone straight point first through the center, cut on the side, it would have gone bleh, everywhere. Sorry, noises again. Wow, that is really good. Yeah, I just can't get my head around the taste, because there's eggs, bread. If you taste the parsley,
You've
wine.
got beef, suet, wine. The water mostly is evaporated off as it cooks.
Oh, and the bread
It's
is
just,
wonderful as well. Did you make the bread? Oh, blimey. So good.
I made the bread last night, so I had something to put this in, but I didn't know if the shop would have oysters this morning. So you could have had a loaf of bread today.
Oh no.
I had everything but the oysters. Like, no. Which is why we've ended up with a second dish.
Huh. Well, it's really good. So you have it in a book, isn't it, the recipe?
The recipe is in the book,
fair
yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
Well,
think
I
it's-
won't just... I could just eat the bread. The bread is delicious as well. I know you're making really good bread. I'm really struggling. If it's not in a bread oven, like a bread oven, a clay oven, I really, really struggle. I don't know why. So I went through your recipes and go, all right, okay, could try this, could try that.
Yep.
I need to figure it out. And I think my oven is just not great, not suitable.
Do you have a casserole dish?
No.
Or or a Dutch oven?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Cook the loaf inside the oven.
In the Dutch
So,
oven.
Yeah.
In the Dutch oven, in the oven.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's it. So then what that just helps you to get a higher temperature, and also I think it creates a bit of steam inside.
Oh, so you get
And
that
steam is what you
crusty-
need for the crust.
Oh. Yeah, because that's how they make baguettes, isn't it? You have
I don't know,
suddenly
actually.
this. Well, should I tell you that's how they make baguettes? Actually, you get steam in your oven, and yeah, it just has that crisp, like that crust and that gooey inside. So I'm just leaving the bread because I know there's other dishes, and I was suddenly wondering, okay, medieval kind of eating where you have these bread trenches and you have, well, the sops basically, so you can give the bread away or reuse it in another dish. I'm going to get my cheese, I'm going to get that garlic, and I'm going to get... there's no translation for that in English in tartine. So it's a slice of bread, usually untoasted. It's just our usual breakfast, or at least in the east of France.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, butter, honey, or jam, cheese, anything you have. But it's not toast because it's not toasted. So it's not a slice of bread with something, it's just an actual... it's the one word I could never translate. So if anybody has any ideas, call Craig.
Don't call me. Call Caroline.
Nice. Let us know.
Put it in the comments underneath. There we
Yeah,
go.
that's a good idea.
Compromise, and I'll let Caroline know.
That would be perfect.
Yeah.
I had a thought about something that you just said, an ingredient of some sort. I can't remember. Yeah, you were saying a high status dish
Yes.
because of beef.
I got a bit distracted
oysters?
because we had a bit of an audience for a while, I must admit. But it's
Yeah,
fine.
that's why if you see us going,
And then the sheep turned up, and
I'm
but
trying to
I'm going to
interpret.
leave it all in. It'll be fun.
that's fair enough.
Yes, high status. So with the bread being, because you'd need an oven, generally classed as more of a high status.
Oh, I didn't know that
to
for.
do.
I'll just put that there.
I
Yeah.
think I've mentioned before on the podcast that I want to look into that a bit more, because it's often referred to as leavened bread being more high status. But I don't really understand why. I mean, there's one behind us from the Iron Age here. I mean, it's clay. They're not expensive to make. So it doesn't really make sense you'd have to...
Yeah, I never heard that concept before. Because,
But more so because I put pepper in anyway. So pepper
yeah,
would
that's
be an
fair enough.
imported spice. So more than the leavened bread would be because there's a spice in there that...
I see.
Yeah, to go with your beef and oysters.
Because that's the weird thing, isn't it? We consider oysters as, nowadays, 21st century, really expensive.
Luxurious.
Yeah. So Whereas in the past, or for the majority of written history at least, it's not. You've got a bit of both. Either you're quite far from where you can actually get fresh oysters, and you still manage to get fresh oysters, which means you have to either have somebody who travels really fast and constantly, but also have access to ice or preservation methods. That
Well,
makes it really expensive.
I don't know so much about Iron Age, but I was reading about this just this week.
Oh, no way.
Because I wondered, because I had Penny, the manager from Shaftesbury Abbey,
Yeah.
and she was saying that one of the sort of like the land taxes from the land they owned on the coast, they would pay their rents in oysters. It's an hour's drive from the coast, I think,
Yeah. Weird.
and so obviously without cars even further. So I looked into it. They will keep, as long as you keep them in salt water for several weeks. So if you
No
have
way.
a barrel or a container full of oysters, you could transport them, I would say, within reason, anywhere in the UK, which is
Yeah,
why they're so
because it's-
common. And so one of the biggest
Oh.
finds at Shaftesbury Abbey is oyster shells, because they were getting their rents paid.
In oysters.
But then,
And,
yeah, when you go into the more Viking and Scandinavia, I think there's no, as far as I understand, no archaeological evidence in Scandinavia that they ate shellfish.
oh, cool.
But they do when they come to England, because they're eating them in Jorvik.
Because there's not much evidence at all for any shellfish or very little fish for the moment so far for Iron Age Britain. What kind of Iron Age culture, even on the coast, Atlantic and the north,
Yeah.
say Denmark, etc. And that's a really, really weird thing that could be changed by hypermodern archaeology and isotope analysis, so you can tell if somebody has grown up eating such foods, marine proteins or land mammals and so on and so forth. So there's very few finds, and it has for a very long time been said, after, say, the middle of the Stone Age, I'll go much earlier in history. So Mesolithic hunter-gatherers, yeah, really lots of marine resources, no problem. You hit the Neolithic, you start, very simplified, you start to settle down, you start having farming arriving and so on and so forth. It begins to reduce. Bronze Age, not too sure about that. Iron Age, almost no finds at all. And you live on the coast, you live near rivers. There's even mentions, where is it? Tacitus? Probably Tacitus. He always talks about the Germanics anyways. So an author mentions that in that part of wherever he travels.
So Agricola and Germanica. I think that was Tacitus, wasn't it?
It could be. I need to recheck. Check yourselves. But in any case, there's that traveller who goes through so many different places, and at some point he says, they're eating fish. They're fishing from the rivers, not so much mentions about the sea, but they're fishing and they're eating fish, which seems to be normal. But if he mentions it, is it something that's surprising to him? I just don't know where I stand anymore, because there's very few finds, and a lot said are about if it's in water. Some cultures, even nowadays, don't eat anything coming from the water because it is sacred, it's a giver of life, and so on and so forth. Or, on the contrary, it's really dangerous, it's really dirty, you don't eat something that comes from the water. One or the other. So it could be possible. But the more we look into isotope analysis and we have more digs, you begin to find one or two vertebrae of place, for example, of different fishes. You have salmon bones on the hilltop in Scotland, really far away from water. So there's something going on, but there's way less of a fish, seafood consumption than I previously thought. And coming from the east of France, I'm 9 hours from the closest sea. So I don't have that culture of eating anything coming from the water. We have rivers, we have even, trout and fisheries and so on and so forth. But myself, in my family, as I've been raised, no, not really. A bit of smoked salmon, a bit of smoked trout, but that's pretty rare. And I don't recall anything but seafood platters when you go and visit Brittany. So I like that connection that I can make because I have access to fish, seafood, even freshwater langoustines or something like that. But we don't used to eat it. And I've never thought about it until somebody mentioned it. Was it the case? I just don't know. That was it, sorry.
But that's interesting because that's a modern take on your personal experience with eating fish.
Yeah.
And that's in the modern world where it's relatively easy for people to get access to things. So then when you put that back in history into the Iron Age or, you know, the Viking Age and the Saxons, and you look at them, the fact that those people in England were eating one thing and yet the Vikings that were over in Scandinavia weren't, makes more sense at that point.
Yeah.
Because if in the modern world we can be that different now, then why not?
Oh, completely. And the regional differences must have happened as well. You must have had different names for different things. I mean, black pudding in the British Isles, we have boudin noir, which is, a blood sausage, but it's made in a different way. There's not the same ingredients in it. If you go to Spain, Portugal, or even the west of France, apparently they have a specialty using creamed spinach added to it. And other people add apples and cooked onions to it instead of on the side. If you go to Spain, you have different spices and rice instead of oats, if I'm correct. So you have different stuff. So it's always really annoying not to have any recipes or any insight at all. Just the archaeology.
So I'm going to get out my Viking egg flask now.
Should I be scared? Should I be worried?
I don't know.
Oh my God.
I don't know. You're all for like eating the whole of animal. You were telling me before about what did you say they were called?
Colorado oysters. If you visit Colorado, you can taste them. They're not oysters. I think they are bison testicles.
Yum.
And they're fried. But yeah, they're, you know, I would say a bit chewy, could have done with more spices. Not a dish of interest particularly, but...
So I've tried to keep this one hot.
Oh, okay.
Which is why it's in a flask. Obviously not something they would have done before anyone calls me out on it. Calm down. Same with the takeaway tub, all right? So I've done it, so these will be cold, and I've done these separately just in case you wanted to have a closer look.
Ooh.
Because I don't know how they're going to pour out of there, because they might have sunk to the bottom. So we might have to empty it between us and sort of divvy it out. So these are, any guess?
Oh, pork knuckles. No.
Right animal.
Ooh, pork. It's pork.
It's pork.
It's not fish.
Pigtails.
No way.
Have you had them before?
No.
No. See, really cheap. I think I got 2 pigtails for about £2.50.
Wow. Is it? Yeah, pigtails.
Yeah, they get very thin at the end, not so much meat. So these were boiled to make the stock for the soup.
Wow.
And then fried in butter to give them a bit of crisp.
I see.
They're surprisingly meaty.
I'm interested. I'm looking. Sorry, I keep
so
looking.
There are those, and then there are more which are in the liquid, which have also been fried and then popped back in. So they're sort of twice cooked.
Wow.
Yeah, we can attempt to...
So this is a soup. That was my first question.
Yes.
Okay. Could be a flan. Could be anything.
So pigtail soup, I've read...
Wow.
Yeah, so you've ended up with a bunch of peas and not a lot else. I've read that the Saxons in particular were big fans of pigtail soup.
Oh.
I think it's in Anne Hagen's. So I've just got the stock and you've got the
Do
peas.
you want to
So that just... Oh, there you go. There's some pigtails. Look.
Oh, nice.
See, they get quite small at the end. Ooh.
So I've got all of them. Basically, I've got the soup, isn't it?
I've got some here. I've got some here. You don't have to eat it.
Oh, I definitely
You don't
want
have to. It's up to you.
My only concern is, how hot is it? Do I take it with my fingers?
It's steaming, so it looks pretty hot. These would be cold. If you want to just try a tail first. Shall we do one each?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks very much.
Because these will be cold because they were fried and then put in a plastic takeaway tub.
Should I show everybody, or you'll hear us eating again? It's really disconcerting. Yeah.
Once it gets in your head.
You should have never said anything.
I should have said afterwards. Yeah, so you can see there the bone that runs through the middle. I've got a friend I work
That's
with
nice.
that he used to eat this as a kid.
Okay.
Just roasted and then salt and pepper. And I guess you could leave them as a whole tail and just...
Like these licorice.
just to chew on.
Mm.
So, yeah. I find they're
Oh,
quite...
no.
They're a bit chewy, actually.
I like to,
But there's
pork
surprising amount of
scratches.
meat on. I think they might have gone...
It
Because they've
is.
been in the tub, I think they've steamed a little bit. So they're probably not quite as crisp as I would normally.
I can imagine the sort of pork scratching outside, meat inside, and then the bone, obviously. But the
It's a
taste
cheap
is really
cut. They
nice.
make really good stock. I don't know if you've got any stock, shall I? You have got some.
I've got everything. Genuinely, do you know? There's that. It's really funny. I mean, you can't see the plate, but I've got quite a lot of the pigtails pieces. And the first thing I would do is playing with it and try to reconstruct the tail. So that's the little bit of it up, and you go from bigger to smaller, and you have kind of a tail going around.
Well, there's two tails in here. I've ended up with this slightly... I mean, that's
Well, I'll
more...
put that down. I'll come back to it later.
Yeah. They're a little
because
bit on
I
the chewy
really
side.
want to
I think because they've
taste
gone
that.
cold. It's under that
I want
bit
to
of
go
skin.
Nice.
But they're good at least for making your stock and things from, because you get all the stuff from the bones comes out. And
But the one from the stock from the soup it's gooey. Oh, like a gooey pork scratching, I want to say, but it's really, really nice. It's much easier to eat as well, especially in front of the camera. Enjoying these noises. Oh, it's terrible.
so again, it's something that I made. The last time I made this, I think we were probably in the middle of a lockdown or something. So it's been a while since I've had it.
Wow. Honestly, I just never thought about it. You hear about pig's ears, feet. That's it. So is it easy to find, or do you go to a special butcher and ask for the cut?
I was walking past the butcher and I thought, I know what I can make for Caroline. And I walked in and they were like, let me go back and have a look. And you come back about 5 minutes later with two tails.
And he had some. Wow.
So they're not
I'm gonna
particularly
ask
common, but you can... in my old house, where I lived in Swindon before, and I used to have to order them in.
Yeah.
So I think if I went in on
Nice.
Tuesday, they'd have them in like next delivery on a Friday or something. You'd end up with a whole bag of them for like a £5.
Wow.
So
It
no one
really
wants them
flavours it.
for some reason. It's quite a rich stock.
Wow. Honestly, do you roast them in butter before you put them in the soup?
No, so what I did, so there is a recipe in my book, but this is different because I didn't have authentic carrots today.
Okay.
So what I've done is I've used parsnips and turnips instead. But basically the tails are boiled, I think it was about 40 minutes. Then I fished them out and roasted them in a pan with some butter to try and crisp them up and caramelisation, bit of flavour.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it's a bit of wild garlic, turnips, parsnips, and split peas.
Oh, I love
And those were boiled until the peas are tender, so I think 25 minutes or so. And then I popped the tails back in, popped it in a thermos, and brought it here.
and drove all the way here. I like that the pieces have a bit of... It turns into a tasting session where I just
Lots of
connect my
flavours.
brain to my mouth. It just... I like the bite of it. I usually make my peas really mushy. I don't know why. Sheep.
Sheep tail. Same
Um.
thought, same time. If there are less sheep next time you come to the ATC, it wasn't us. I think the vegetables have gone a little bit on the mushy side, where they've been sat in the thermos.
Maybe I just like mushy food. That's
Baby
pretty much
food.
it. But it's really, really tasty. And it's not... Oh, how can I describe that? It's almost on the sweet side of things. Well,
There is
because
a
you have the
sweetness to
parsnip and turnips
Yeah.
and peas, but it's... Wow, it's so... Oh, it's
For
delicious,
something that doesn't
so
have any
powerful.
sugar in it, I guess.
Yeah.
And at the time that would have tasted quite sweet with the lack of
Oh, yeah,
any
definitely.
sweetness.
don't you find that parsnips? Yes, parsnips I find incredibly sweet as vegetables, and I don't particularly like them. I prefer turnips when they are more on the radish, watery side of things.
I think, don't you eat raw turnips?
Yeah.
I'm sure I've seen you do that before.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
thought so.
remove the skin, peel them first. Never again. Yeah, it's just big radishes, so there's nothing more refreshing in the summer and more interesting to do on the display as well. You
Like
peel
an
your
apple.
turnip and you go, it's really good. Pinch of salt, maybe a bit of that. Oh, we could make a salad. Anyway.
So we've been gassing away for a long time, so we should probably speed this along a little bit. You can carry on eating, but there is I brought something a bit sweeter for you as well.
Okay.
That I cooked using a frying pan.
Is it good enough for me? I don't know.
Come to the future.
Yeah. Okay, I'll join you in oh.
These might have been sweating a bit as well, actually. So these are oat flour.
Okay.
Fruit. So these aren't seasonal at the moment.
Okay.
But being modern times, I can get fruit. So I used blueberries and raspberries, but any soft fruits. And then malt extract.
Wow, okay.
And that's it. And they're fried.
Ooh.
Yes.
On the frying pan.
In a frying
I will
pan.
forgive this. May I?
Yes, you may. Again, they look like they've been sweating a little bit, so hopefully they're not too gooey.
Oh, I love gooey food.
They're almost
especially
like a
with
set porridge.
Yeah, that's my favourite food.
But I thought I'd bring you something a bit sweeter to have as a pudding.
Wow.
And it's one of the things most people forget about is they talk about honey as a sweetener and they forget things like malt extract and tree saps and all that sort of.
Well, that's it.
Three
Mainly,
ingredients.
well, anything non-refined, but fruits, well, so honey, fruits, but they're seasonal. Grains, anything you can get out of grains. Malt is so delicious. You have made something some months ago. Whey, caramelized whey.
Yes,
so
I did. Brown
that.
cheese, or brunost, they call it.
I'm sure I had some.
Very nice.
It just tastes like dairy, toffee. I don't want to say toffee cheese because it doesn't taste of cheese. That's the weird thing.
It kind of is cheesy though.
Yeah.
It's an odd one.
Qualify it, but it's super sweet. I would have that over toffee any day.
I boiled a pot this big. I think it was 3/4 full of whey. And if you saw the video, that tiny little dish I had with that, that's what I ended up with.
Blimey.
So you really have to boil the whey down and the liquid off to almost nothing. But yeah, I think they, in a time when there are many sweet foods, it would have been something that would have been done because you'd have the fire on anyway. So you're not wasting fuel doing it.
And if it's cheese making, so the whey being the cheese making byproduct, you're probably in spring, late spring, early summer, where you have all your milk from all your animals. So you don't have your soft fruits yet. And there you go, you turn the byproduct into something. I know what it makes me think about. Confiture de lait. That's the word in French, but it's milk jam.
Milk jam.
But effectively,
That doesn't
that's
sound good. Milk jam.
And I'm sure there might not be some in.
Sequel to Space Jam, is that?
I guess it's exactly the same principle. They managed to make a sort of salted caramel cream that we call confiture de lait, milk jam. Probably because you boil and you concentrate down the dairy sugars, and I need to look deeper into that. I'm curious now.
I know there from our period, there is a pot with sort of the burned remnants that have been tested and they were some kind of cheese. And to me, that says brunost because I know some people would say they were cheese making, but I can't see how you would burn it if you were making cheese to that level. Whereas if you're reducing it and you left it for just that last 2 minutes, it would burn. So I think it's more likely that it was brunost. But that's personal opinion.
That's a really good one. Yeah. That is delicious again. I'll keep saying that, but genuinely I'm having like a 3/4 I don't know, 3-course meal.
3-course.
It is, as planned, so good. And that's it. It doesn't need, that's what I mean. It doesn't need to be complicated. It can be super simple, seasonal, very tasty, super nourishing, and you have all your vitamins and so on and so forth. You can genuinely, I said genuinely so many times, you could make it in a frying pan if you had a frying pan. I used a flat stone.
Yeah, flat stone would work just as well. Yeah.
That's it. So that I can, just transfer it to the Iron Age or earlier time periods.
There you go.
Pigtail as well.
And pigtails,
I
yeah.
can't believe it. It's so good. Or maybe it's just the way you cook it. I have to be careful with that.
They're relatively easy. I mean, I cooked 3 dishes at the same time. Whilst looking at the time thinking, I said I'd be there at 12 o'clock.
I was late. I see that's the problem now. I won't stop eating. Greedy.
Do you know what? I even, as a backup, just in case you, I'm not eating any of this, I bought some honey.
Oh, that! At least you can have bread and honey.
You said you weren't fussy, you'd eat anything, so I'm
Yeah.
like, right, let's go for it. And then I was like, maybe I'll bring a backup.
I was really worried because having said that, I thought, what's going to be? Maybe it's going to be innards and weird bits, or maybe, eyeballs, sheep eyeballs, or something really Scandinavian.
I'm not eating eyeballs.
No.
I'm ruling that out.
Oh, fair enough. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I would struggle. I would taste it, but I would struggle. And then I discovered that it's delicious, but you can make them into a paint. Just say, there you go. Putting that out there.
It's probably more useful as a paint than
Than
food.
the broth. Well, I have never tried, so I'm ready.
Do you need some eyeballs?
I'm not going to look for them. If they happen, they happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been talking for a long time and we haven't covered half of what you do because you also do all your painting and pigments and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we've been talking food, but actually you've got a whole other thing that we haven't even...
I should just say, if you manage to see the background.
It's beautiful background.
Yeah, because I refocus, so I mainly work on Iron Age and do living history displays and research workshops, blah-de-blahs. But I do from Iron Age to 1580s, say 1600s, 17th century. It started mainly everything about the food through the ages, and I realized that I preferred working on one time period, but doing more about it. And it's all about breaking myths. So the first one was the food. Is it bland and you eat every day, etc.? No, it's not, and you can prove it. You can look at the archaeology, the history, some textual evidence, and so on. Now that that's managed, I kind of know where I'm at. I would love to write a book. We'll see what happens. I leave it at that. But what I'm really interested in is what you live in as well. And it started by very simply, many years ago, just fresh starter, going, all right, how can I make an Iron Age shield, first of all, replica, okay. How do I color it? How do I paint it? And it's a never-ending list of questions. And I suddenly realized, especially in the last 5 years, probably, many more painted objects from the Iron Age or earlier time periods just popped up in the archaeology. In Britain, there's an Iron Age shield that just has been discovered with paint on. There's some Viking ones as well. There's paint on Viking, churches, Saxon as well, ships. But looking at anything before the Romans, anybody automatically assumes that you live in that. It's all 50 Shades of Mud every time. So it's dirty, it's uncomfortable, it's smoky, and it's just, now I'm retraining in historical, traditional building techniques, but natural building. Only now do I understand how much of a lack of understanding there is about materials that are meant to be simple. Yeah, wattle and daub walls. It's simple, natural local materials, but if you don't know what you're doing, well, no offense to anybody, but it's going to look pretty rubbish. And that's not what we find in the archaeology. we have pieces of walls painted, beautiful, super smooth. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference between is 5th century BC, if it was 21st century in an office, you wouldn't know. But I don't have the skills yet, all the skills yet to be able to show that. So that's how I end up being in that rabbit hole again. So I worked on the pigments, done, paintbrushes, okay, the binders, even eyeballs, etc. I didn't test it myself, but some people did. And these, once you kind of understand, life is much more colorful, comfortable, actually really cozy, warm. And I know my future house, if I eventually manage to find one or to build one, goodness knows, that's what I'm going to use. Everything made of clay, chalk, cob, probably not thatch, as much as I love it. Just slate would be lovely. So I'll commission that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'm trying to work on and share with your good lady, actually.
She does a little bit, yeah. Many
Illumination.
manuscripts, yeah.
And I'm not an artist exactly like that. I'm not a chef, but I can cook. I'm not an artist, but I can make the materials.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm interested in.
But I think that's probably more realistic to the sort of day-to-day person historically as well.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, like they wouldn't have had plain walls. It's human nature to be creative. If you can get some pigments out of the earth and mix them up and draw things on the wall, you're going to do it.
Yeah,
because you have to look at it every day. So why not make it look good? And the same with the food, like you said before, you don't need food to be boring. If you've got forageable garlic and things, you're going to put it in because it makes your life more interesting, more exciting.
And the thing is, if you start thinking like that, you start looking at the evidence and all the things that can point you in that direction. And every single time you've done that, I've done that, we find it. There is evidence, but it's buried somewhere or it's pretty new. And if you don't ask the questions, you won't know. And nobody's going to piece things together if you don't really look for that answer specifically. So here we are.
History detectives.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, we should make a club. Sure, that exists. We could call it Time Group or something.
Yes.
Anyways.
So, I know you've got somewhere to be, so we should probably wrap up. So I'm going to ask you the last 3 questions.
Okay.
And you don't know these, do you?
No, I don't.
Oh,
I didn't prepare anything.
this is where we get the real answers out of you,
Super
Caroline.
personal. Okay.
So, first one is, if you had an unlimited budget, what would be your dream project?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh, man.
I think you kind of alluded to it just now.
Yeah. I would kind of try to do... Would it be a personal project or kind of a greater project?
That's up to you to interpret that as whichever way you like, really. It could be personal or historical.
I would... Do you know, I would probably get a lot of completely different people, researchers, archaeologists, professionals in some crafts, or even amateurs who like doing something, people who know stuff, bring them together and recreate like daily life, lower middle class, Iron Age settlement, and live in it.
Permanently.
But it would probably so it would probably have to be kind of a farm, but you need the animals, so you need people who know about agriculture, husbandry, crafts, so many things. And I cannot stop but keep thinking about the Scottish Crannock Centre, thinking, well, they're kind of doing it, I'm guessing.
So what you need to do is go and live.
And I would buy it then. If I had unlimited budget, there would be jacuzzis, roundhouses.
A jacuzzi in a roundhouse.
And I would probably try to get different groups all over Europe, all over the world, to communicate with each other and to skill share. That's so important, the education and the skill sharing. But just as you don't have the pressure of money anymore, you can run a project. Just look at the archaeology, build something, but go for really weird theories and just see if it works. Use really materials that are not known anymore, that you should test out, but you don't have the time, you don't have the money. If the house falls down, you can't redo it. So yeah, allow people who are interested and anybody uninterested to learn more. Everybody to learn
With
more
your
about
unlimited
that.
budget, you're just going to force everyone to work the Iron Age.
Yeah, it sounds pretty bad, actually.
Sounds a bit like a dictatorship.
Well, and then nobody would know who runs it, so nobody would recognize me in the street.
Oh.
Ah.
So it's like Secret Millionaire, but
Iron Age
the
film, Secret Millionaire.
Iron Age millionaire dictatorship.
Wow. We need somebody
Title
who
needs
runs
work.
it. Yeah, or on a lower scale, probably just having various kind of ancient craft and building techniques trainings open to as many people as possible. Yeah, that would be it. And the jacuzzi. Oh, and goats. Yeah.
Goats, gotta have goats.
Oh, goats.
All right, so next question. Are you ready?
Okay.
Do you think you could survive on a Viking Age diet?
Oh yeah, diet definitely. Sorry, I just went
Straight into the Viking Age.
in the Viking Age. Can you? Nah, I'd die like 2 days in. Bam.
Just the food.
Just the food. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. I think people would be much healthier, probably happier. Weirdly enough, there's lots of connections between digestive systems and mental welfare and so on and so forth. But I think anybody definitely can more than survive. They would enjoy and thrive on the Viking diet, no problem. As long as you are in an environment that allows you to get the products. I would miss...
Now, and that leads into the next question.
Oh, I knew it.
They're kind of tied together, so the next question is there anything you'd miss on a Viking Age diet?
Yeah.
I have to get in there before you did.
Oh, you did good. That was just on time. Yeah, chocolate, coffee. And spices, weirdly enough, but not so much, because you already have my favorite one, black pepper. A really good black pepper. I just really would miss that. So, as I don't have black pepper in the Iron Age, yeah.
We have it, but we have to be a bit sparing with it. I mean,
but I would have an unlimited budget, so...
Oh, I see you're linking it to the project
well,
as well.
I heard it
so
as
whilst you...
It's
all
Viking.
connected.
Uh-huh.
Interestingly, Tom's answers,
Oh,
very similar to yours.
really?
Coffee and a Mars bar.
Oh, damn. Oh, Mars bars. Yeah, I was going to...
That was...
Triple chocolate muffin.
He was on the very first episode, if anyone hasn't seen it, but... spoiler.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Oh, no.
Pretend you didn't hear that. Going back
So you
12
don't know yet.
episodes.
Yeah,
Awesome.
very much that. And I could definitely live without. But all the foods I think I really would struggle without are all food that are like cheese. It genuinely, cheese, mustard, probably wild garlic. I would be all right. Yeah, so you have them all in the Viking Age. No problem.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me. That was amazing.
Do you want to tell people where they can find you online? Facebook, Instagram?
Yeah.
Website?
So my website, www.pario, P-A-R-I-O, I'm looking at you, Gallico, Gallico.com.
Yeah.
I'm on Instagram, Facebook, the website, a tiny bit on YouTube. I'm not really doing much on video side of things. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. You can find me easily normally.
I'll link them under in the description.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
All right. Brilliant.
Well,
Thank you.
Thanks for that, and see you soon then.
And I'll see you all soon. Bye.
If you enjoyed the podcast or want to hear more, remember to like and subscribe and give me a rating. For recipes and ideas, visit my website saxonforager.co.uk. I also have 3 cookbooks available to buy on Amazon worldwide. These are Eat Like a Viking Volumes 1 and 2 and Eat Like a Halfling. Thanks for watching.